on the motion austerity measures should be approved by referendum. But before starting to listen to our wonderful debaters today, I would like to start by introducing the international panel of judges. So, we have Branka from Serbia, Mateusz from Slovakia, Tina from Croatia, Fredrik from Czech Republic, from India, Alejandro from Venezuela, from Romania. The two teams that are going to clash today, are on the proposition side, London 1, composed of Salima, Bess and Eleanor. On the opposing side, we have Slovenia, Druga, Ljubov. And this team is composed of Dorian and Janina. The reply speeches on both sides, on the proposition side, will be given by Salima, side by Dorian. One more person which is extremely important for our debate to go smoothly, and that's, guess who? The timekeeper. And the timekeeper is Tanya from London. So without further ado, let's get this debate started and let the best win. I called upon the first member of the government to start the debate and their own case.
In these tough economic times, many countries are in recession. So austerity measures are currently being imposed where more and more of people's taxes are being taken away from them. More and more public spending is being cut, and the people are getting no say in how their money is being spent. The majority of these decisions to implement austerity measures are made by officials in places such as the European Central Bank. So today, we propose a motion that austerity measures, which are actions taken by government to reduce the amount of money it spends, or the amount of money that people spend in the country, should be approved by referendum in a representative democracy. Today we will prove to you two things. Firstly, that if people do not get the chance to approve this by referendum, it will have a negative impact on the life of the majority. And secondly, that the democracy of the country is being breached without a referendum. So today I will be talking to you about how the lives of the people will be affected without this referendum. And in this I will be talking about why these austerity measures haven't worked, how this affects the people, and why they should get to make this approval. And Beth will then go on to talk about, without referendum, why democracy will be negatively affected by the austerity measures. So, firstly, austerity measures are usually mostly focused on cutting the public spending, and their aim is to cut back now, that if we reduce our spending now, that later we will prosper in the future. However, in countries such as the UK, 4 years worth of austerity measures haven't worked. There has been, there has been very, very slow economic growth, and this is supposed to benefit the people. So we're saying that if these things haven't worked, and they are taking the majority of the cuts from the public instead of looking at other areas where they need to, where they could cut other spending. So the country and our people are being put second to think that the government and the ECB think is important. Yes, sir.
When was the last referendum in England?
So we haven't had a referendum, but we say that we should have a referendum because people are clearly upset about what has happened, and therefore they should get this chance to approve these kind of measures being put in our country. So how are the people being affected? Well, firstly, these decisions directly affect the people of the lower middle class, who make up the majority of the country. as these are the people with a low income. These are the people who already don't earn a lot of money and have to spend it on their families and themselves, and therefore this will have a negative impact on their economic state because they have to pay back things such as loans, and they won't be able to without the money. We say that by making cuts, we are putting them into a deeper hole and taking away their money, and they will have no say.
Yes, but many. Well, madam.
No, thank you. And this results in unhappy citizens who will begin to revolt against their government because of this lack of democracy. And this was shown last year in Spain in December, where thousands of people protested the austerity measures that were put in place. And ordinary people who aren't normally very politically active were even protesting. And this was because the Spanish government decided to plan to cut 60 billion euros worth of cuts through to 2014. Such a large amount of money clearly has a detrimental effect, where the poor won't be able to afford to live a stable life. And this will bring chaos to the country. People went on strike, some people even turned violent, all because they had no confidence in the government, that the government weren't making the right decisions for them, and therefore they could not trust them. And this affected the people because it broke up marriages, families, they had lots of jobs, people were put in bad living conditions, and this has this domino effect of problems. Yes, sir.
Madam, how do you think people would react if it was their own decision and it would be a bad decision?
Well, we say let the people make that decision, because they're the ones that are ultimately living in these conditions. And then if it turns out, and then therefore they can decide how their money is being spent. But I'm going on to that now. So we say, why should they get the chance to approve decisions, as I've just said? Because these austerity measures will either work or fail, but as I've just proven, they haven't worked in the majority of cases. People should have the chance to approve these measures, as they are the ones who will be living in the conditions of when these measures are put in place. These are the people whose hard-earned money, when they go to work every day to support their family, is being taken away from the government. Poor people.
Madam,
yes, ma'am.
Don't you think that just because people are personally involved in the issue, their decisions won't be as rational as if the government makes them?
Ma'am, what I'm saying is that because the people have to live with the conclusions of this approval, it's their money that's being spent. And because it's their money that they've put into the country, they should be the ones to decide where it goes. So we say that people should be able to take this risk because of all the possible negative effects that I've given that could occur. These lower class middle people make up the majority of the country. So of course the austerity measures will affect the majority, and therefore it should be their decision to whether these austerity measures should be put in place. For example, if we took away £50 from someone that was on benefits, of course this would be very difficult for them to cope, because they need to find a way to cut back on the things that they probably are able to afford. But for someone that's rich, which is a small minority of the country, this won't affect them. So because a larger section of the country are more affected, this is the majority, this is the lower middle class people, we need to give them the chance to say how they think their money should be spent, because it's not the government to just suddenly take away, but it's the people's hard-earned money who needs to be considered, and their opinions. No, thank you. On side proposition, we believe it's the people that need to be listened to, because if they aren't listened to, this results in disharmony. It results in people protesting because they are not happy with the government. It creates a division between the government and the people of the majority, and we believe that these two should work in harmony together to provide the best for the country. And if this isn't happening, therefore the country will not work in the best way possible. So today, I have told you that altogether, if the people aren't given this approval, if they aren't given the chance to have a referendum in representative democracy, then it will negatively affect their lives, because these austerity measures have such detrimental effects. If they do not work, the people can end up with serious issues, and we are trying to prevent this. We say that because the people's hard-earned money is being put into this, because their money is being taken away from them, they need to have this decision because they need to be listened to. Yes, ma'am.
In Greece, before they implemented austerity measures, people voted on the referendum, and it still backfired. So there were still negative consequences on the people.
Yes, but at least the people made a decision. At least it was the people's choice of where their money was going to go. Because then they can't turn around and say it's the government's fault. It's their fault. But at least they've made that decision. At least they've said that my money needs to go here, here, and here. And if it doesn't work, then okay. But this is their money. So yes, as I've told you, we think that the people's decision is the most important. That the people need to be listened to. It's the people and the government that need to work together to make sure that the country works in harmony. And for all these reasons, we have been proud to propose the motion.
Thank you, Salima. Now I'd like to invite Dorian to open the case for the opposition and continue this debate.
Just a second, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just click. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to discuss three things. We are here not to discuss two things and discuss one thing, sorry. Firstly, we are not to discuss if austerity measures are okay. As sort of proposition sort of gave us the temptation that they are just not right from the beginning because they're taking people's money away. We don't know if they're all right or not. And this is something we're not to discuss here because it's a consequence of the decision and it should not influence the decision because we do not know what the consequence will be. We can only predict. Secondly, we are here not to talk about specific austerity measures. We are here not to talk that much of the past, whether it's right or wrong, but to talk about the principle and the future of the decision. And here we are to talk about who and why do we decide for, well, austerity measures and who actually can decide these things and so on. So, what do we say? No, thank you. We say that referendum is by form of referendum not correct, and we say that austerity measures as a form of political policy do not apply to the referendum. How do we say it? We say over three main points, which are the burden of today's proposition, the burning fire for the proposition. Low attendance and the legitimacy and all the things that follow, which I will argue. The nature of austerity, as I have already told you. And lastly, the difficulty of the decision, which has to be concerned here. So, we'll be arguing everything all together throughout two speeches with three arguments. Firstly, I'll be talking about the complicated decision in the austerity measures and the mechanism austerity measure requires just by itself, and then my speaker will be talking about referendum's nature. Why I'm just predicting, like I'm the first speaker of the government. Why? Because we have gotten very, very little material from proposition that we could actually argue on, except the truisms that people have the right to vote where the money goes, but we have not. But we will argue: is this really true? That people have this right when it's so very subjective. We have gotten the truth that people protested in Greece, but we're saying here people would protest in every scenario in case, no thank you, the question was not right. And we're saying that IMF confirmed that the austerity measures were not very, very correct, which just proves the point I will explain later about the complicated decision. And lastly, they have been talking about people's own decision on their own money, and we said this is simply not true. Because here we have to realize that the majority of the middle and the higher class still control the poorest level here, and we say this is also not right. So, no thank you. What are we saying here on the side of opposition today? They have to argue why referendum is the right thing for austerity measures, even though austerity measures represent a big, big difficulty for referendum decisions, and they have to argue the referendum itself. So, how and why do we stand on the side of opposition? I stand, and my second and third speaker, we believe that complicated decisions of the austerity measures, the influence austerity measures have on the decision by definition of austerity measures, simply make it impossible for people to vote objectively, rationally, and therefore the best they can, since, you know, the decision is big, as the proposition claimed. So, let us ask ourselves, let's take a look at the nature of the actual austerity measures. What do? They, as proposition told us, they take money away from people. Well, not so very true. They differently distribute states' money, and they differently distribute taxes. So it's both ways. State doesn't accumulate money, state just saves money for later. But okay, let's leave the practicalities, because we're not to discuss the thing that happens. But they take money away from schooling, from education, therefore, from Medicare, for public jobs, and so on. They make budget cuts on organizations, and so on. And what does this tell you? This tells you that the level of social state goes down. And what happens when the level of social state goes down? people get mad. People don't want their social status, no thank you, to lower just because they want the state to be more secure in the future. People are very, very subjective. And why are they very subjective? Well, let's face it. Firstly, people are egoistic. Each and every individual is egoistic and therefore takes care of his own money. And he does not look long-term on the solution and, well, state-wise on the solution. Secondly, we are in the time of panic because there is an economic crisis. This is a fact. And therefore people are already living relatively low on the social status. Therefore, no thank you. People won't dare to give their vote, yes, austerity measures, lower my standards because it might do good. This is something, no thank you, that makes the decision unlegitimate. Why? Because it's too subjective for a political, radical, rational decision to be done. And even if the decision would be done, we're saying it is not good for the people. Why? Because firstly, when people take the decision that they want their money to be taken off and it proves to be wrong in this scenario, the thing that I call the division of responsibility occurs. And this is a very simple mechanism. Once I give the state power to take my money away, in case I say yes to a referendum, therefore the state can always say, you said we can do it, therefore we have the power, therefore you cannot protest. And this gives state power that in the scenario without referendum the state does not have. People now revolt and people now fight the state if state took the bad decision. And why, no thank you, will state double check the bad decision and not once check it like people? People will take the subjective decision, which will in many cases be no thank you, but maybe yes, and yes is bad. And why will the state take a double check, which is better than a single check? Because states want to keep their power. And what happens when states want to keep their political power? Well, they don't want to mess it up. They will double check it, because if they don't, well, they won't be on the political power anymore. And they will check it throughout the best experts they can get. No thank you. People will check it. People will seek certain authorities because people won't know what to do. And I will now explain why they won't know. But let me just finish the thought. People won't know what exactly to do because people because people need certain authorities, and these authorities won't be as expertise as the state, because state can afford the best. People don't know who is the best. People choose the one who is best looking. But why will people choose authority? Because people don't know what to do. Because these are structural problems of austerity measures and structural problems of the general economy. It's bank, money, investment, spending, importance of spending, so on. People have to know a lot of things, how to invest in short term and long term. And we're saying this is not something that people need to know, and this is not something that people actually do know and be rational on it. So therefore the decision is not as legitimate from the people as it is from the state. As at the end, the state is the subject here that will be better off if the decision is really, really well handled. Well, people will just act subjectively. Second thing, generally, what we are talking about here is that austerity measures require certain specifics in the referendum process. Austerity measures have to be taken really, really quickly, and referendums take a long, long time. Referendums take a long time to educate people, about, let's say, for a year, and referendums, when they're passed, they have to be stagnated for 1 year in order for the situation to calm down. This is something we have, maybe it's somewhere different, but still. So we're saying, also the propaganda occurs, but this is not very relevant. So we're saying, right now, that austerity measures have to be taken faster, and that they have to be taken rational, not subjective from the people, because if they're taken subjective from the people, they're not very, very legitimate. And if they're taken from the people, then the state, if the answer is yes, can abuse the power it has gotten. And we will also talk in the second speech why the referendum is not the right form itself. The offer proposition.
We thank Dorian and invite the second member of the government to continue their line and proceed with the debate.
Here on the proposition side, we believe that austerity measures should be approved by referendum. My main point today is that here on the proposition side, we believe that without referendum, democracy will be affected by austerity measures, and that we believe that democracy is very important. But before I go on to my point, I'd like to start with some rebuttal. Firstly, you brought up the case of the referendum in Greece, where they voted for austerity measures, but they had negative impacts. But we'd just like to remind you that during this case, other countries said if you carry out this referendum, then we will withdraw the loans that we have given you, and therefore they did not carry out this referendum. And we think that if we, so this is a completely different case because it was one country alone, it was not how the proposition have proposed the idea. Also, you say that we shouldn't look to the past because it has nothing to do with the future. So you're saying that we cannot learn from the past to look to the future. You're saying we should not look at what's happened, what mistakes have been made, so we can learn and make better decisions. And on the proposition side, we do not agree. Also, you said we don't have time to educate people and make them more aware of how to be more politically active and how to make the right decisions. We think this is a ridiculous point. What you're saying is that we shouldn't educate people because it's not important for them to know about politics because it takes too much time. Also, you said that austerity measures take people's money away. You agreed that they take people's money away because you're taking away money from hospitals and education. And you think that this is okay to take away people's money, take away money from hospitals and education, which will reduce the quality of life, and you think this is okay, and therefore we should leave the situation as it is accepted. You also said that it gives the state the power by saying people say they've made a decision, and so then the state can be like, oh well, you made the decision through the referendum, and therefore you can't protest. Well, yes, but we're saying we should give the opportunity for the people to make a decision because at the moment the austerity measures are not having a good impact on people's lives. And we're saying that because they're not having a good impact on people's lives, because they're having such an impact, they should be able to have a say. Because they have such a impact on people's lives, they should have a say and they should be able to make a decision accepted.
On short term, they will never have a good impact.
We don't know how you can make these claims that on short term it will never have a good impact. You can seem to be ignoring that when the austerity measures that have already taken place have happened, people have realised very quickly that these are the wrong decisions and have protested because they realise that they are the wrong decisions and they're going to make the mistakes. So you can't say how you seem to jump to the conclusion that everyone's going to make the wrong decision. So I'm going to go on to my point. So we believe that without referendum, democracy will be affected by austerity measures. So during the global financial crisis, in many European countries, for example in Greece, countries did not have enough money to borrow from other countries because they couldn't make reliable promises to get the money back. So they had to borrow from the banks like the European Central Bank and the IMF. However, this is a problem because the conditions for borrowing the money to restore their country back to the global situation included austerity measures. So the ECB and IMF would say, we will give you the money if in return you will take austerity measures to reduce the budget, meaning you have more money available to pay us back. So for example in Greece, when the global financial crisis hit, Greece's main industries were hit and Greece had to request money from the bank. And we saw how the Greek government announced a series of austerity measures to secure the 110 billion euros that they needed. So the Greek public met this with great anger, and there was massive protests and riots and social unrest throughout Greece because they saw that they weren't getting a say in these austerity measures. So why is this a problem? We think it's a problem because democracy is important, because it allows the people to make decisions that are concerning them, that are affecting their lives, that are making them have what they need. And we're in a situation where the countries were no longer acting as a democracy, because rather than their representatives making decisions about the austerity measures, these decisions were being made but they were being dictated by banks, and they were being put in place by banks, so it wasn't a democracy. We can see that the democracy is not working, as the public views were not being shown, accepted.
So you're saying that even in referendum, things don't always function as they should. And this is what we're also saying here.
So you're saying that not everything works in a referendum, but I haven't said that what we're debating is that austerity measures are something that impact people's lives and they should have a say on them, because currently they're not having a say, they're not having a democratic right to have a say, and therefore decisions are being made that do not benefit the people. There are austerity measures, we believe, are different to other laws because they have an effect on every single part of people's life. They have an effect on the majority of people, as Salima explained, and therefore they get to have a say in them. We are supposed to be in this, we said that this is concerning representative democracy, so we're supposed to be democratic states. But the interests of people are being lost because the banks are dictating on whether we should have austerity measures, and the banks are dictating what should happen. And we think that this is wrong because, and therefore we should implement a referendum so that people are having these decisions instead of these banks, instead of something completely different from the democracy having an impact that someone else should. So, as Salima explains, it's easy for someone in a room to say, oh, we should cut this, this and this because we're going to look at the data and see that we should cut this because it will have an effect here. But they do not understand the actual and literal effects it has on people's lives, the effects that it has in their homes, the effects that it has in their societies, because these people are completely separate to that. And therefore, the people should have the opportunity to make the decision that affects their lives. And the right to make these decisions, because at the moment they don't have the democratic voice because these banks are dictating what should happen. We're discussing this because over the last few years, austerity measures have had a negative impact on people's lives. They've had an impact that have made people lose their money, their jobs, their income, and they've had, and this has been dictated by not the people, and the people have the right to make a decision that is best going to suit themselves. So we're not saying that austerity measures are always going to be good, but we're saying that we think that the people should have the right to choose the austerity measures that are going to suit them, choose the systems that they think are going to suit them, and therefore we believe that austerity measures should be approved by referendum. So what have I told you today? I've told you the importance of the people having a say in the democratic society. I've told you what the referendum will do to change the current situation, and I've shown you how if we don't have a referendum on these very important austerity measures, then we cannot be a democratic society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Now, Moore will continue the opposition and debate as the second speaker to the scene.
So, at the beginning of my speech, I would like to make two things clear. Firstly, we believe today that none of us wants to cut from his salary, that none of us wants to take his money away. And that's why the people won't, take those austerity measures. They'll just say no to them. And secondly, if they're going to say yes, they'll be actually enforced to do that. So we are not talking about democracy in this case. Is that really democracy when someone forces you to do something, forces you to vote for something? Obviously, proposition failed, and at this point, to prove us that actually it's a real democracy to vote. And on the other side, yeah, we have problems because that banks make a pressure on us. So that's a bit of a contradiction in their case. So let me start with the austerity measures on general. Well, in every case, they're not good. I mean, not good for people that are affected from them. They're going to suffer in each case, whether they're going to accept them or not. whether the government will accept them or not. And in case they don't accept them, in the long term, they will suffer even more. Because obviously something wrong. Obviously something wrong and has to be changed. And that's why we believe that sometimes the government is that organ that can change something that's more objective than subjective people. No, thank you. So, about objectivity, I can't say that I'm a good debater because that's not objective. And that's why the people can't claim on themselves, can't say that I would like to, they won't say that they want to cut from themselves. Yes, please.
So the people can't say that if you take my money from me, I will be poor, I won't be able to afford food, and you think that they should suffer with these kind of consequences without having any choice?
Well, it's a matter of time when you'll be poor, when you won't have money, because it's a crisis. No, thank you. So, let's say something about the lower class people, they're in the majority. That's simply not true, because the middle class people are in the majority. And when middle class people are in the majority, there are some minorities that are affected. And I'll explain you that in our second argument. So I'll just start with a second argument because they didn't say really something good that I'll negate. So let me start with our second argument that has 3 points. And first, that's actually talking about referendums on general. Why they're bad? Why they're actually a flaw in our system? So there are 3 reasons. First reason is because of the manipulation. The second reason is because the voting turnout is really low. And the third thing is that the decisions that have been made, that are being made, are just not professional, that they're not informed. So the first point about manipulation. The first point in manipulation are campaigns. They're simply and pure manipulation of people. So they're actually some kind of enforcement on their feelings, not on rational thinking. And that, we think, is a problem today. Because they're using some kind of a psychological trick that they stay on power. And if they want to stay on power, they have to make things interesting. They have to manipulate us to do some things that they get funds and that they'll be on the government, that they'll be the rulers. So the next point in campaign is that they're very long. They take usually 1 year or 2 years, and in those 2 years that the campaign work, there can be a lot of changes. So we believe that because they are so long, and the second point is that we had in Slovenia we had a campaign about that the gay will adopt children or something like that. So first we believe that that's a radical manipulation. That's what's going on. There were a lot of lies. For example, in churches, the priest was showing the Bible and said, the Bible says you shouldn't be gay. And that's simply manipulation of people. That's simply manipulation to vote for something else. And we believe that that's a really good reason why not to have referendums at all. And in this case, like Dorian already said in our first argument, why austerity measures? Yes, please.
How can you manipulate someone to think that they need to keep their money, that they should vote no for the austerity measures because it's going to badly affect them?
It doesn't matter. We're talking about, I'm just saying that referendums are bad decisions. And on the other side, yeah, you can manipulate people to circle yes instead of no. So the next thing is that there has to be a lot of more decisions at the one time. When we are taking the laws, when we are on the votings and we are circling the answer, there are 10 laws, for example, and only one of them is so important in media. It's so under pressure. It's so promoted, and that's why we don't actually know they come in the package, and that's why we actually don't know what we are taking, what we are doing, and at the end we agree with nine other laws that aren't even mentioned. So that I believe that's another weak point in manipulation. So the next thing is the tyranny of the majority. So the majority has to decides about the minority in each case in a referendum, because they're simply more powerful because it's more of them, and they're simply more powerful at this point. So if I have a majority that they vote for something, they're simply not going to vote. If I have a majority and something affects the minority, majority simply doesn't have a right to vote about the minority, because no thank you, they're not going to take care of them. They just don't think about them. So if I'm the one person and I have another person over there, obviously I'm not going to cut money from myself, I will cut money from them. So the next point in this argument is the bad turnout, low turnout on votings. That's actually a trend. We see that the less majority of the people are coming on votings. And the proposition today is constantly saying we have to be democratic. And it is really democratic that 20% of all the population goes to vote, and we believe that that's simply not true. So whenever you have votings, on one side you have those who didn't vote, and you have those who voted against, and they have to accept the consequences, as well as those who agreed to the decision. So the third point in our argument are unprofessional decisions. So firstly, if we are talking about austerity measures, one decision can't be, you make one decision, and that decision can be professional, it's too many technicalities. Even we are debating about this thing, and we are not sure exactly what austerity measures are. So we know that you have to be really informed to know things about that. And the next thing, why people are voting for that, for some reasons, for some things, is political ideology. So when something is promoted from another party, from the party that you like, you're going to vote for that party, and it doesn't matter what you really think. So two main reasons are actually, there was a research made, why the people vote for things. First is that who says that law, who proposed that law, and the second is whether you liked him or not. And that's the reasons why referendum at all, on general, is a really bad idea, and why we disagree with that. So thank you.
Right, time for the third speeches in this debate. I would like to invite Eleanor to give out the third speech for the opposition.
The opposition today do not understand one of two things. They either don't know what democracy is, or do not agree with it. And today in our speech, we have proven to you why. Okay, firstly, I have two main points of clash in this debate. Firstly, the choice of the people, and secondly, about true democracy. But firstly, I'd just like to make a few passing comments about some of the things that they said. Firstly, the second speaker said, we don't really understand what austerity measures are. And I would just like to say, just because your team doesn't understand what they mean, doesn't mean ours don't. Secondly, I'd also like to say that you mentioned about the Bible and about being gay, and I just don't understand the relevance of that point to what we're debating today, as what we're debating today is about the people, and it's about the choices of the people, and in the form of a referendum. Firstly, I'd like to go to my first point. The first speaker here completely contradicted himself and his whole arguments. He said the people don't know, no thank you, the people don't know what the results of austerity measures are. Yet through your speeches you've also been talking about strikes, and so have we. So it's obvious that you do know, and that the people do know the results of austerity measures.
Eleanor.
No, thank you. You've also talked about that people will make the wrong decisions. Well, what we like to say is that the people are informed about the problems that face them, and we have proven to the problems with austerity measures and how a referendum will help this. Firstly, the problems with austerity measures. We know that by increasing tax or by taking money out of the public sector, we are affecting people's lives. We're increasing unemployment. We're increasing their wages, therefore making their quality of life worse. But by by introducing a referendum, it's their choice, so it's their decision. The opposition have said that they'll make the wrong decisions, and how will they feel, one second, and how will they feel once they make the wrong decisions? But what we say is that they know the issues with these austerity measures. They know the consequences, so therefore they will make the best decision that represents them. For example, if you're of a higher class, you probably will vote for austerity measures as they don't affect you as much. But the majority, which is the lower middle class, who are the ones that are affected, will probably vote not in favour of these austerity measures. Yes.
You're giving austerity measures no chance. What if they're good, but people just don't see long-term good?
Thank you, we understand. If they're good, then people will vote for them. That's the point. They will vote for them because they understand the consequences of the austerity measures, and they understand that they can improve their lifestyles. But what we're trying to say also is that the most of the austerity measures, such as taking money out of the public sector, do not benefit the people in any way, because it's just they're decreasing their quality of life. Also, the opposition said, oh, people don't understand politics, they will vote for the people who are best looking. Well, this comment does not make sense, no thank you, because what we're voting for in a referendum is we're voting for a piece of legislation. We're voting for a rule or a law. We're not voting for a representative. We're not voting for the person who's the best looking. So this point just simply does not make sense. And also, you've been talking about manipulation. Well, firstly, I don't think this point was properly explained, but what I'm taking from it is that the media will be able to manipulate people's votes. But we say, no, they won't, because the people know what affects them. If I'm part of the majority, if I'm part of the lower middle class, and I know that if we enforce one of these austerity measures, my quality of life and my lifestyle is going to go down. I'm not going to be able to afford the necessities, or not even the luxuries, the necessities that I need to survive. Then I'm going to vote against this. Whereas if I'm of an upper class and I see that this could actually help me, because that this austerity measure could actually help me or doesn't really affect me, then I will vote for it. It's not as if we're not giving austerity measures a chance at all. It's about the people. But what we're saying is that the majority of people will probably vote against them, and we believe that this, in fact, is a good thing, like you said, because you've also mentioned how you don't agree with austerity measures. But the majority probably won't either, because it negatively affects their qualities of life. Now, the second point that we've talked about is democracy. Now, like we were saying before, that you've been mentioning before about how we're giving austerity measures no chance, which is not true democracy, because it's not sort of fair or equal. But you've completely you've completely ignored and misunderstood what we're saying, that right now we don't have democracy when it comes to austerity measures, because it's banks, no thank you, and businesses that are deciding what happens to the people. We have been talking about the IMF and the ECB. We've been mentioning how the IMF and the ECB are the ones that are telling the government, that they need to impose these certain austerity measures to make sure that they can pay them back. But what you guys have said is you've mentioned that we need the government as a life form for us. But the government isn't. The government is being run by these businesses and by these banks, which isn't true democracy, because true democracy is when the people choose for what we want. We choose what is for best of us. And then by enforcing referendums in this is exactly what we're doing. So the opposition have both ignored our main points and have misunderstood the democracy of this system. So, what our main outline of this whole debate is that the choice of the people is the most important, because we are the people. We've seen the terrible effects of these austerity measures, as we've used examples as in Greece with all the strikes in London. We've all been to these strikes, so we've seen firsthand what they're like. We've understood that by introducing these austerity measures, we're not improving the economy. It's actually making it worse, as we're cutting sort of education, for example. Which then, if people are less educated, then it's going to make it harder for them to get a job, which is going to increase unemployment, which is just going to make this whole cycle. But what I'd also like to make clear is we're not completely banning austerity measures. We're not saying austerity measures are always wrong. Austerity measures are always this, austerity measures are always this. What we are saying on the proposition is that austerity measures aren't the way that they're enforced isn't through democracy, and the way that the way that they're enforced does not help the people. It is making it worse for the people, which the opposition do not understand, which is why on this team we are telling you that referendums will increase democracy because it's the people's choice, and they will in fact in the long term improve people's qualities of life and improve their lifestyles, which is why we beg you to propose the motion.
All right, the third speech from the opposition will be given by Janina.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, dear judges. Of course, the opposition side here today agrees that democracy is important. But what we believe here is that the decisions that come out of direct democracy are not inherently good for the people, and that was one of the burdens to prove by the proposition side. So basically, what we believe is that we are the ones who chose our government, therefore our government chooses our austerity measures, and our government has the legitimacy to do that because we are the one who democratically elected them. So the main burden that was here to prove by the proposition side is that people deciding for themselves won't have any negative consequences or harms, and that austerity measures are a specific policy that is actually appropriate to be discussed on a referendum. I will divide my speech in three main points. So the first point is about who actually makes better decisions, or where is less consequences, if people are the ones who are deciding or if the government is the one who is deciding. So yes, we believe that we are... No, thank you. We believe that we are talking about the decisions that have a direct impact on lives of the people. We believe that people may lose jobs, people may lose, I don't know, education funds, healthcare, or whatsoever, but just because those things, especially because those things have a direct impact on the people, we believe that people are not the ones who can appropriately decide for them. So why is that so? No, thank you. Because people, of course, will decide for some short-term benefits. People will never decide for the long-term benefits because they don't know them and because they're egoistic, and they would rather have everything good for them now and starve later in the future, no thank you, or make the next generation starve because they used all of the money. So basically, no thank you. No matter if people actually agree with the austerity measures or if people don't agree with austerity measures, they will vote against them. Why will they vote against them? By default, because they are the ones that are personally involved, they're emotionally involved, and therefore they cannot make decisions that would rationally benefit the society. So no thank you. There was also a question why should people now start voting because we're in the economic crisis. What we believe is that now is not the right time because of all the negative impacts that economic crisis has on our people. Because people now feel especially affected by all the referendums that have maybe failed, and therefore they won't be able to make rational decisions because they have some sort of a, stereotype against those decisions. But okay, but even if the decisions are negative, what we believe that even if decisions that come out of austerity measures and the consequences are negative, we believe it is still better that those decisions are made by the government. Why is that so? No, thank you. Because our government, our authority is elected. Therefore, no, thank you. No, yeah, go.
We've proven to you that the government aren't actually the ones that are deciding.
No, you're wrong on that point. The government is the one who elects people who are in IMF. Therefore, the government has to propose them, the government has to approve austerity measures in order for them to be implemented in the country. So much about that point. No, thank you. So the authority that we elected is responsible for our decisions. Therefore, if our authority that we elected does something bad for the country, everybody knows that they are the ones who are responsible. Therefore, which we have proven in our first speech, the people of the government will start making better decisions because they know that if they make a mistake, people won't vote for them again. And every government wants to be voted for again. Therefore, they will double check the decisions and will be made better than by the people. But on the other hand, if people vote, it is not democratic. Because why is it not democratic? Because people are forced to voting, and when they're forced to voting, they're automatically responsible for whatever they voted for. So basically, the politicians get the power, but the people are the ones who are legitimately responsible, and they can protest if the turn out to have bad consequences. The second point, no thank you, I will talk about the impact of decisions that are being made, which brilliantly ignored by the side of proposition side. So basically, my first point is about the form of decisions that is being made. So what we believe here in the opposition side today is that the decisions that are being made cannot be rationally thought through by the people, because the people are not deciding for a law. When people go out and vote for a referendum, we know how people act, we know how people think. They fall for things like populism. People will not decide for a law, but they will decide for a law if it's proposed by the candidate that they think looks the best, the candidate that they think it has the best ideology. They will not be able to specify on an actual subject, but all of the other things, specifics of ideology, candidate, looks, whatever. So basically what happens, no thank you, what happens at that point is that because people don't have an official authority, they're so much easier to be manipulated with. What happens is that the people that don't have authority don't basically know, which I will explain in the next point, don't basically know what they're choosing for. And therefore, they make up some authority, like priests that actually, the priests influence people to vote against gay adoption referendum. Basically, they choose unofficial authority, which is way rationally is not there justified to make the decisions for us. So on the second point, even if people try to be critical and make rational decisions, things that are being, obviously the proposition side hasn't done their homework in this case, because things that are being proven on austerity measures are things that have to be known for, are things that have to be analyzed. For example, we read the referendum that was imposed in Greece. Basically what people were deciding for, they were deciding from procents of money that goes from one bank to another, procents of money that go from budgets to old people, to young people, and basically people have no idea how much money that is. People have no idea, no thank you, how much money goes anywhere. And the fact that the IMF admitted they made a mistake only proves why the decisions are so complex. Because even the IMF can make the right decision. Yeah, we agree, they made a mistake in Greece, no thank you. But because they admitted that they have made a mistake, this shows us why the decisions are so complex that the people will make even more mistakes. And we believe that a thing with such big impact directly on the people and on the state's economy in the long term, no thank you, such as austerity measures should not be affected by manipulation and by making more decisions at the same time that are being made to directly mislead the people and make the wrong decisions. About third point, about the legitimacy of decisions. So basically what we believe here is on the referendums, most of the people won't vote, because let's face it, most of the people don't go voting because they're not interested in the subject or thank you. So their decisions won't be representative. And with too little participation, their decisions won't be representative, but it's still expected that the responsibility actually lies with them for the decisions they make. So politics get more power while the people get responsible. And also the issue about the minorities, that I said something about people affecting minorities, I'm not sure. Yes, we agree, people are divided in a higher class. So the austerity measures will not affect everything equally, we agree. But even if they would affect everyone equally, some people can afford that equal impacts and others people can. Some people that are rich can afford to lose 2% of their money, while people who are poor just cannot do that. And what we believe that the state is the organ that is the most efficient to decide what kind of funds, which amount of money should go to who, and the state knows whether people don't. So people will vote against each other because people won't realize that by their choices they're actually affecting all of the other people in the country. So because we believe that the opposition side has proven that by giving referendum to the people we will have more harmful effects than the good effects, we believe that the opposition side has won this debate.
Time for the last speeches. The reply speeches will start from the opposition with Bill.
May I begin? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a famous French philosopher, thinker, Alain Badiou once said, and I quote, "Greece is not well off." Yes, we know Greece is not well off. We don't need to use Alain Badiou to tell Greece is not well off. We know IMF did a bad thing. IMF admits it did a bad thing. Therefore, we say austerity measures can go bad. But on the other side, throughout the history, I am certain that when some king saved money and gave a little less to the peasant, his empire was stronger. Or even not kings, maybe even in democracies. I don't know, and I'm not supposed to know in reply speech. But we are saying we are not supposed to take predictions about what austerity measures will do. We cannot do it. Why? Because we don't know what will happen 100% in economy. Economy predicts. And therefore we elect the government we think will predict the best together with the economy. And we say on the side of opposition in 2 points that the government that does the better decision than the people will do, because the government will do a better overlook, because the government will be less subjective, because the government will avoid all the populistic, manipulistic things that occur when you involve people in such decisions. So firstly, what are the positive effects of not having the referendum for austerity measures? Yes, austerity measures sound horrible. Yes. And this is why we are giving the opportunity of yes, almost no choice. And we are saying this is not right. Why? Because austerity measures might be okay. We have examples when they're okay. Well, we had examples when they were okay in the first speeches. We know that when somebody does something wrong, we can throw out the government because we're not satisfied with them. But when we say yes to austerity measures, we cannot throw ourselves out. We cannot protest against ourselves. This is a fact. But even if we say yes, the present proposition says it's not our decision. It's imposed from European banks, it's imposed from European Union, so therefore it changes nothing if it's all in the hands of European Union. But we're saying, no, let's not put it to referendum and let's give it at least a chance, and let's give it a double check from the actual authorities, from people who have been hired with experience, from people we have trusted the first vote, and why would they disappoint us now? And even if they disappoint us, they can be gone, while we can't. So, is the decision actually legit? To summarize, we say no. Why? Because it's very, very too subjective. Because it's very, very too complex. Because what happens when we impose austerity measures? People panic. And what happens when people panic? People don't think. People think short term, what will happen to me? People don't think long term, while on the other hand, government does. And if it doesn't, well, government's out. So we're saying, let's put it to the government, and let's secondly, at least not in any scenario, put it to the referendum, because it would not function. Because the referendum firstly has to educate the people about the topic, which takes very, very long time. We have proven this. Secondly, referendum is subjective to certain ideologies, propagandas, and so on. So therefore the decision is not 100% objective and rational, which has to be in such a scenario. And lastly, referendum offers the opportunity of the rule of the majority, or rule of the angry 20% that will go to vote, and the rest who just doesn't care is left out, and therefore this is not also a legitimate decision. So what have we proven? We have proven the nature of austerity measures is not something we can put to referendums, and it's not something that has to be decided by the people, because people can fail, and if they fail in this decision, that the consequences are much worse than if the government fails, because the government can be replaced, because the government will do a double check. We have given you mechanisms, our mechanisms stand. We believe that good people, but people cannot be trusted with such things, which is sad, but it is the truth. So therefore, vote for opposition.
And now the last speech in this debate will come from Salima.
On side proposition, we have the people and their rights in the forefront of our mind. We have constantly stressed for you today that it's the people's decision that matters, and today I'll be proving that. We have constantly stressed to you that if we don't live in a properly democratic society, they will have a bad effect where people will begin to revolt against the government, and instead of working in harmony, there will just be more chaos. Today we had two burdens. One, to prove that if people don't get this referendum, it will have a negative impact on the lives of the majority. And secondly, our burden of proof was that the democracy of the country will be breached without this referendum. And today I'll be showing you exactly why we have fulfilled this burden. So firstly, we have proven that because austerity measures have such detrimental effects, and there's a great risk with them. They can either work or they won't work. And as we've shown today, the majority of cases, they haven't worked. And we haven't been really given from the opposition a situation where they have properly worked without people having this choice. We see that people will suffer. And if they can't have this decision and there are negative effects, they are going to start protesting. And they're going to start getting violent because they are not getting heard. They are not getting the say in things that directly affect them. We will prove it today. This whole debate has come down to whether the people or the government make the right decisions. And we say that the government are the ones who are subjective, because they are the ones who won't be affected by these kind of austerity measures, because they will always be rich, they will always have their money. But it's the majority of the country, it's the people who are the ones who are being directly affected by these matters, and that is why they deserve to have this vote, because the government don't have any personal attachment to the people. They will always get their pay, they will always get the money that they need to survive, but it's the people who will lose out on the luxuries and will lose out on the things that they normally have. We've proven to you today that austerity measures currently aren't democratic. And it's because these decisions are made by the IMF or the ECB, and they have no idea what's going on with the people. It's easy for someone in an office to look at graphs and say, okay, we're going to take money from here, here, and mostly from the people. But they aren't the ones that are living in the bad living conditions. They aren't the ones that are going to have to experience what will happen when you take away a lot of money from a person, and they aren't the ones that are going to have to live with these consequences. You see that people aren't going to be manipulated from these decisions because obviously they know what's best for them. And if the majority of the people have the same decision, then how can we ignore what they think? How can we say that we live in a democratic society and we're not even paying attention to what the people want? But, we understand, of course, that referendums take time to educate people. But we say that, that people will know that if some amount of money is going to be taken from them, of course they're going to know what the consequences are. They're going to understand how this is going to affect them, and therefore they know what they're talking about, and therefore they know and they understand the effects. You see, the government, of course, can make mistakes, as the opposition have pointed out, and they have made these mistakes because they can't sympathise and empathise with the people of the country. Today we have proven to you that the people make the best decisions for themselves, because the people have to live their lives every day and they will have to live with the consequences and not the government. We have shown you today that austerity measures will have such detrimental effects on the people, and because they have such a great risk of not working, and because in the majority of cases they haven't worked, the people need to be able to vote, because these austerity measures can't be taken lightly. The people can't just give all this vote to a government or to the ECB to make decisions for them, because it's their lives that are being messed with. And we have proven to you today that these austerity measures aren't very democratic, because it's not the people who are getting decisions. And we can't say that we live in a democratic society when the people aren't being heard, the people aren't getting their rights to have this freedom of speech, the people aren't getting their rights to have the freedom of choice of how they live their lives. So today, because we have fulfilled our burdens, and we have shown you today that it will have a negative impact on the life of the majority, and because we have proven to you today that the democracy of the country will be breached, we have therefore fulfilled our purpose, and we beg you to propose a motion.